Dr. James was giving a lost sheep a haircut when he saw something strange. There was cat litter stuck in the sheep's wool. It was a first for him, and he couldn't guess why it was there. What he found out next made him start crying right there in the barn. Earlier that morning, Dr. James had received a strange call from Frank, one of the farmers in the area. He did not own any sheep, but somehow a sheep had ended up in his barn. The animal appeared to be lost, its fur matted and in horrible shape. Frank had immediately called Dr. James to come and take a look at it, not expecting it to take such a strange turn. "Frank, have you seen this?" Dr. James asked with wide eyes. When Frank joined him to take a look at what he had found, he gasped. "Oh my God, how did those end up there? Are they okay? How many of them are there? Can you tell?" he exclaimed. To his surprise, the vet had found 4 little kittens in the sheep's wool. Dr. James tried to take the kittens out of the wool, but they were completely stuck and he couldn't free them without hurting either them or the sheep. So, he carefully shaved off the rest of the sheep's wool, and he grabbed the kittens one by one and rolled them into a warm blanket. "They are still so young," Frank said. He was right, they could only be a couple of weeks old. Frank called his wife to come and keep an eye on the kittens while he ran to a nearby pet store to get some kitten formula, and Dr. James took care of the sheep. Apart from its matted and dirty fur, it looked perfectly healthy, which surprised him. "Dr. James, how could a sheep survive in the wilderness so long without getting malnourished or ill? And those kittens? It seems impossible," Frank's wife asked. And Dr. James raised his shoulders in response. "I have to be honest with you, Sandra. I have absolutely no idea. I have never seen something like this in my life before." Just when the vet had finished taking care of the sheep, Frank returned with warm bottles of kitten formula. All 3 of them started feeding the kittens, who eagerly drank up the whole thing. Even though they seemed to be in great health, these little babies sure are hungry, the vet laughed. But this was not the end yet, their special story had only just begun. How did this sheep survive in the wild for so long? And the kittens? And why was the sheep even carrying the kittens in the first place? What did they eat? Ugh, so many questions and still 0 answers. Dr. James was determined to find out what was going on, but he didn't even know where to start. Luckily, Frank had a good idea, and Dr. James and Sandra were on board with it immediately. He sent out a message to all farmers in the area, asking if anyone was missing a sheep and hoping that if they did, they would reach out to them. In the meantime, Dr. James sent out a message to his own colleagues as well. Obviously, Dr. James and the other vets in the area kept a record of all the animals they treated. Dr. James himself had not treated any pregnant cat in the past few months, but perhaps one of his colleagues had, and they would be able to track down the kitten's mother. Of course, it would probably take some time for Frank and Dr. James to hear back from anyone. In the meantime, they made sure the sheep and the kittens were not hungry, thirsty, or cold. They noticed that the animals did not like being separated from each other, and the kittens wouldn't stop meowing if they were taken away from the sheep. They all crawled together next to its belly and laid there, enjoying each other's warmth. It seemed like they had gotten used to each other's company. Since it was already late, Dr. James went home and left Frank and Sandra with the kittens. He offered to take them to his clinic, but they insisted on leaving them at the farm. They seemed perfectly healthy, and this way they could stay close to the sheep. The next morning, Dr. James returned to the farm with news he had spoken to a colleague. Dr. James explained that one of his colleagues did remember treating a pregnant cat recently, but she lost track of it after it ran away. The color of its fur matched the baby kittens, and the time period in which she was pregnant and the kitten's age added up. It was very possible that this cat was actually their mother. There was only one problem. They had no idea where she was. And Dr. James was not the only one who had news. Frank had heard from another farmer who had recently lost a sheep. They had spoken on the phone, and the other farmer agreed to come and take a look. If it really was his sheep, he would definitely recognize it as soon as he saw it. As Eric's truck rumbled down the gravel path towards Frank's farm, a sense of anticipation filled the air. Upon arrival, he made his way to the barn where the mysterious sheep was housed. One look was all it took. Eric's eyes lit up with recognition at the sight of the distinctive mark on the sheep's side, a swirl pattern in its wool that resembled a small tornado. "That's my sheep," he exclaimed, his voice a mix of disbelief and relief. Eric approached the sheep, his steps slow and measured. As he stroked its wool, his face softened with affection. "I've had this sheep since it was just a lamb," he shared with Frank and Dr. James. "Never thought I'd see it again." His voice carried a mix of joy and nostalgia, recounting memories of the sheep on his farm, its playful antics, and its calm presence among the flock. The mark on the sheep's wool, now more evident up close, captivated everyone's attention. It wasn't just any mark, it was a natural pattern within the wool, unique and easily recognizable. This birthmark, resembling a spiral galaxy, had been the key to Eric's instant recognition of his long-lost sheep, setting it apart from any other in his flock. Gathering around in the barn, Eric began recounting the night the sheep went missing. "It was during one of the worst storms we've had," he said, his voice tinged with the stress of that memory. Lightning had struck a tree, breaking the fence, and amidst the chaos and noise, the sheep had bolted, frightened and disoriented. He had searched for days, but to no avail. The sheep had vanished into the stormy night. Eric paused, looking at the sheep again, his brow furrowed in thought. But how on earth did she end up here with kittens in her wool, he wondered aloud. This peculiar situation was as baffling as it was miraculous. Frank, Dr. James and Eric exchanged puzzled glances, each lost in their own thoughts about this curious mystery. "That storm was like nothing I'd ever seen," Eric continued, his eyes distant as he recalled the event. He described the howling wind, the relentless rain, and the crack of thunder that seemed to shake the very ground. "It was a night of chaos, the kind where you can't see a hand in front of your face," he said, painting a vivid picture of the tempestuous evening when the sheep had disappeared. Speculation began about the sheep's actions that night. Dr. James proposed that, driven by instinct and fear, the sheep might have sought shelter in a nearby barn. "It's possible that she stumbled upon an abandoned barn, maybe even found the mother cat there," he mused, trying to piece together the fragmented story of that fateful night. They imagined the scene: the lost and frightened sheep, seeking refuge from the storm, encountering a stray cat, perhaps also seeking shelter. In that shared space, away from the howling winds and driving rain, a bond might have formed, an unusual alliance forged by the need for warmth and safety in the midst of nature's fury. The barn, a haven in the tempest, became a sanctuary for both the sheep and the cat. They might have huddled together, the sheep's thick wool providing much-needed warmth. In that moment, amidst the storm's wrath, an unlikely companionship formed, a silent understanding between two creatures braving the same storm. When the storm cleared and morning came, Eric said, "I found the barn in disarray, but no sign of her. The farm had been left in a state of upheaval, the broken fence a mute testament to the night's events. The sheep was gone, vanished into the early morning mist, leaving behind only questions and a profound sense of loss." In the quiet corners of Frank's barn, Dr. James observed with fascination the interactions between the sheep and the kittens. He took notes, his eyes reflecting the wonder he felt. The sheep, gentle and patient, seemed to have formed a unique bond with the kittens, watching over them like a guardian. The kittens, in turn, played around her, their tiny paws occasionally brushing against her wool. The sight was something to behold: the large, serene sheep and the tiny, energetic kittens moving together in harmony. The kittens would scamper and tumble, always returning to the sheep's side, nuzzling into her wool. The sheep responded with gentle nuzzles, a scene of pure affection and camaraderie between species that would otherwise never interact this closely. There was a sense of comfort and security in their company. The kittens, playful and curious, often found solace snuggled against the sheep's warm wool. The sheep, in turn, seemed to take pleasure in their presence, her eyes softening whenever they curled up close to her, a serene expression settling over her face, as if she found their presence just as comforting. Dr. James pondered the nature of the bond. Could it be maternal instincts, he mused, watching the sheep care for the kittens with a tenderness that transcended species? Though she had never been a mother herself, her behavior suggested a deep, nurturing connection, a maternal-like affection that was both puzzling and heartwarming. This relationship between the sheep and kittens was more than just a matter of circumstance. It was a bond forged by need, comfort, and perhaps a mutual understanding. Their connection transcended the barriers of species, offering a glimpse into the complex emotional world of animals that so often remains hidden from human eyes. Word of the extraordinary bond between the sheep and kittens began to spread, catching the attention of local media. Reporters flocked to Frank's farm, eager to cover this unusual story. Cameras and microphones became a common sight, capturing the tender moments between the sheep and her unlikely companions, broadcasting this unique tale to a wider audience. The community's intrigue grew as the story unfolded. Neighbors and local residents, drawn by the tale of the protective sheep and her feline friends, visited Frank's farm. People of all ages watched in awe as the sheep gently interacted with the kittens, their curiosity and amazement evident in their hushed tones and smiling faces. A local news segment highlighted the mystery of the sheep and kittens. The reporter stood in the barn, narrating the unusual story, her voice filled with wonder. The camera panned to the sheep and kittens, capturing their interactions, the bond they shared becoming a symbol of hope and unity in the small community. Interviews with Frank, Eric, and Dr. James offered personal insights into the story. Each shared their perspective, their voices tinged with emotion as they recounted the discovery of the sheep and kittens and the incredible bond they had formed. The interviews painted a picture of a community brought together by this heartwarming and mysterious event. As the story of the sheep and kittens spread, it captured the hearts of people far beyond the local community. Social media buzzed with discussions and shares, and the tale resonated with many, touching on themes of unexpected friendship, resilience, and the nurturing power of connection, transcending the boundaries of a small farm to reach a national audience. A somber mood enveloped Frank's farm with the discovery of the mother cat's body in a nearby field. The once joyful atmosphere dimmed as the reality of the kitten's loss sank in. It was a stark reminder of the fragility of life, a poignant chapter added to the already remarkable story of the sheep and her feline companions. Frank, Eric, and Dr. James stood together, sharing a moment of silence for the mother cat. "Life can be so unpredictable," Frank said softly, his voice heavy with emotion. Dr. James nodded in agreement, reflecting on the strength of the bond that had formed between the sheep and the kittens, now more poignant in the wake of their mother's passing. News of the mother cat's fate spread through the community, bringing a wave of sadness. Neighbors and locals, who had followed the story closely, began leaving flowers and small tributes at the edge of Frank's farm. It was a tender display of shared grief and support, a community coming together in the face of loss. In the midst of sorrow, the sheep's protective nature towards the kittens shone even brighter. The community, moved by the situation, rallied to provide support. Donations of food, blankets, and toys for the kittens poured in, and volunteers offered their time to help care for them. The sheep, ever vigilant, continued to watch over her unlikely charges with an unwavering sense of duty. The loss of the mother cat seemed to deepen the bond between the sheep and the kittens. They were now more than just companions, they were a family forged by circumstance and nurtured by shared experiences. The kittens clung to the sheep more than ever, finding comfort in her presence, a bittersweet reminder of the mother they had lost. The unique relationship between the sheep and the kittens sparked a wave of speculation among experts and locals alike. Why did the sheep take on such a protective role, they wondered. Some theorized it was a natural instinct, while others believed it was a response to the shared experience of survival. The mystery of their bond became a topic of much discussion and intrigue. Debates emerged about the nature of the sheep's behavior. Was it a display of maternal instincts, despite the difference in species? Frank and the locals exchanged stories and observations, each trying to understand the sheep's motivations. The possibility of a maternal connection, though scientifically unexplained, seemed to resonate with many as a plausible explanation for the sheep's nurturing actions. Dr. James and Eric delved into the mystery of the sheep and kittens. Eric recalled an old, dust-covered camera mounted in the barn's corner, which might have recorded the events of the stormy night. Excited and hopeful, Dr. James joined Eric in watching the footage. The grainy video revealed the mother cat bringing her newborn kittens into the barn and the sheep's tender act of wrapping them in her wool. This touching moment explained how the kittens ended up in the sheep's care. The community gathered to watch the incredible footage, feeling a renewed sense of awe and appreciation for the animal's story. The footage revealed the profound survival instincts and unexpected kindness within the animal kingdom. In honor of the sheep and kitten's remarkable journey, the community organized a celebration filled with joy and gratitude. Families came forward to adopt the animals, ensuring they would continue to receive the love and care they had experienced at Frank's farm. Dr. James reflected on the power of compassion, unity, and the mysterious beauty of nature, which had brought them all together.